Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining Student Money Management Services for our virtual version of Money Bootcamp. Before we begin our topics today, I want to share that our services are still running and we will continue to assist students through a virtual presence. So my name is Dylan Stenzel and I'm the Senior Peer Educator at Student Money Management Services. I've been working in the office for 3 years now. I'm a senior studying finance and supply chain management. Joining me today is Love Patel, who is another peer educator in our office. So today we're going to be taking a look at personal finance topics of budgeting and credit. So let's begin. So at Student Money Management Services, we focus on financial education and how to make the most out of your money. So whether you make a little bit or a lot, you still have to find that balance with managing it so that you can make the most out of your money. So to do this, we focus on our 5 pillars of personal finance. First is income and financial aid. So all the cash that's coming into your hand. So obviously any part-time job you have, but then also counting any financial aid that's coming in, and also any money that your parents might be providing as support. Then we have checking and savings, where you're holding this money, and specifically in the bank. Then we have cash management, different ways to track your expenses so that you're not spending more than you're making. Then credit cards, the pros and cons to them. And I think a lot of the time students have some negative perception about credit cards, that they're going to ruin your finances. But in reality, as long as you're using a credit card appropriately and you know how it works, it can be a good thing for you to have. And then finally, the importance of keeping a clean credit history. So this brings us into our first topic of budgeting. So we always say in our office, it's better to tell your money where to go instead of asking where it all went. And budgeting is going to help us do this. So why is it important to budget? Even if you don't have a job or any income, it's still a good idea to budget. And the reasons for that can help decide what you can and cannot afford, identify expenses that you could start saving money on, prevent impulse spending on online shopping, things like that, build your savings for the future, repay your debt or help prepare to repay your debt if you have student loans, and then finally invest. And we'll get to investing at a later time. So when you're making your budget, you have to recognize all your income and acknowledge all your expenses. So your income is easy because that's what we like to see. So that's the money that could be from your part-time job, gift money from your parents, and any financial aid or scholarships that come into your bank account. But when we're taking a look at expenses, it gets a little bit harder to track. So you could start off with whether it's a regular expense versus variable. So something like rent or a car payment or cell phone plan are examples of a regular payment because you know how much it's going to be and it's going to occur every single month. Versus something like going out to eat would be considered a variable expense because it will change every single month. And then finally, you have to be honest with yourself. So if you're making your budget and there's only room for $50 for going out to eat, then you can't lie to yourself, or else that budget's not going to help you save any money. So there's 2 different types of budgeting, proactive and reactive. So our office focuses on proactive budgeting, which is budgeting first and then spending later. So that would be at the beginning of the month, sitting down and saying that you're only going to spend $50 on going out to eat, and then as the month goes, making sure you don't spend over that amount. So you could probably guess why we like to be proactive rather than reactive with our budgeting, because if you're spending first and then reflecting later, that can get a little out of control a lot quicker. And finally, the last part of our budgeting topic is watching out for budget busters. So these are things that can easily be avoided on a day-to-day basis, but can end up costing you a lot of money. So things like parking tickets. I'm sure you've all been experienced a time where you've parked on campus at somewhere that you're not allowed to, and KU parking will find you and immediately give you a ticket. And then some of these other things like dropping a course after the refund date or late charges, things like that can easily be avoided if you're just being careful. So now we're going to move on to credit, and our peer educator, Love Patel, is going to take that for us.
Thanks, Dylan. So yeah, talking about credit, the most important thing is like, why should we have a credit? So basically, a good credit score can help you with many major purchases, and it's easy to lose a good credit score and takes time to rebuild that. So I will start off by just giving you guys the difference between a credit score and a credit report. Um, a credit score is basically the numerical value that is just calculated from your information. So basically, just like your credit cards, your student loans, and stuff like that. A credit report is basically a summary of your financial reliability, which is just basically just your history of paying debts and other bills. So if we go to the next slide and we see that, Dylan, next slide, please. Yeah. So when you want to establish credit, there's the good credit, the bad, and the insufficient credit history. So for students, when we're getting started, the best and the easiest way to build a good credit report and a credit score would be secured student loans or just credit cards. So basically, credit cards, the student credit cards that we talk about are the ones that don't have like an annual fee, and their APRs are usually less than other credit cards. And student loans is basically like all of us have student loans, and just like when we start paying them back, it just tends to affect our credit score and our credit report. Next, we're gonna talk about the differences between a debit card and a credit card. So you'd be surprised by how many people don't know the difference between them. So we're just gonna go over some major differences here. So a debit card is basically one that operates like a cash or a check. So as soon as you swipe your debit card, the money is out of your account in one business day or the next business day. It does not affect your credit score, and never use online. What we suggest is just like use it safely, because once you take out the money from your debit card, it's going to take 1 or 2 days to like refund that money back. So if you're signing up for a service that is just like making a small transaction on your account just to see if you have the necessary funds later, that basically takes like 2 or 3 business days to get that money back. While a credit card would just know that it's just security check, so it's going to just show it on your statement. But once you go to pay your credit card bill, it's going to go away. So what a credit card does is basically it's just like a small business, a small loan for 30 days. So basically, you're allowed to spend and record transaction up to your credit limit, and you have like 30 days to pay it back. The good thing with the credit card is that it affects your credit score and it's safe to use online compared to a debit card. So moving on, we're gonna talk about like using credit cards. So before you get a credit card, just know like have a repayment plan before you spend, so you know that the balance is due in 30 days. So just plan your expenses accordingly. What I tend to do is I usually pay 4 or 5 days ahead of my closing date, so that way I just ensure that the money has reached, and I usually just pay it online, which is much easier than writing a check. um, do not carry large balances for long term. So basically, if you just have a balance for like 3 or 4 months, it's going to keep accumulating interest, and it's going to affect your credit score negatively. Um, do not use this as your emergency fund. So basically, have some money saved up. Don't just rely on your credit card to come and save you at the end of the day. Um, always pay more than the minimum. So I personally tend to pay the full amount, but if you're not able to pay the full amount, basically pay twice the minimum and pay it off every month when possible. And basically, if everything else fails, just like don't swipe your card if you know you can't afford it. The biggest takeaway would be just paying on time and just making sure you're not missing payments when you know you can make the payments. So just paying twice the minimum or just paying the full amount, just making sure you're paying something and you're not just like sitting on a balance to grow for long term. So next, now we're gonna just break down what a credit score includes. So basically, as you can see, like 35% is payment history. So if you have a bad payment history, that's just gonna affect your credit score by like 35%, as compared to the amount owed, which is 30%. Sorry. Length of credit history is just like how long you're using your card for. this basically just tends to vary over how much time you have the card for. So if you're a new user, it's probably not going to be that long. So new users usually tend to check their credit score at least like 9 months or 12 months after they got the card. So that just gives them some length, which can be reflected in their score. New credit is just like any other credit cards that you might have gotten over time, and types of credit is just like student loans, mortgages, or just other type of cards that you might be having. On the left hand side, it just shows like the different excellent, good, and poor ratings and what scores usually relate to that. So an excellent score would be from 800 to 850, whereas a poor score would be 579 or less. So as we're talking about credit score, we can find the credit score on creditkarma.com, which is like a free website, which basically just gives you a credit score. So the screenshot below just shows like their homepage when you open it on Google or Firefox or Edge. And you can just hit on see my scores, and it's going to ask you for some information, and it's going to at the end. So it takes about like 10 minutes, but it's going to get you to your score, and it's just going to give you like some advice on how to like increase your score, maybe get a new card, or it just shows like what cards you're eligible for now if you want to get more cards. And it just basically gives you good advices on how to keep increasing your credit score from what it is right now. So that's all we have for today. If you guys have any questions, feel free to like email us or give us a call. Our office is not open, but we're still operating on virtual hours, which is from 8:30 to 4:30. You can email us, you can call us. If you have any questions about the presentation, just DM us on Instagram or Twitter, and we will reach out to you. And there's going to be another video coming in the week on 3:30, which is going to talk about student loans and investing. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, like I said, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to help you.